Good morning, everybody. It's Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and welcome to episode number 115 on May the 18th, 2021. I hope everybody is doing okay. The nicer weather has hit in our part of the world, and so I'm looking forward to, on some nice days, taking my sewing machine out onto my patio and doing some sewing there. I like doing that. It takes a little bit of a setup, but it's just nice to be outside. Well, I'm sort of outside. It's my patio. It's a covered patio and it's sort of screened in, so you know, I'm sort of inside out, if you will. But I do like doing that on an occasion. It's just something about sewing outside that's kind of fun. But anyways, what's behind me is my latest project. You've heard me talk about it before, and I've shown you bits and pieces of it. Well, I finally got the top all done, and this is the Strong and Free quilt by Paul Leger. And I had some problems with this quilt. I'll talk about those in a minute. But it's quite nice, very patriotic as well. And now this is just the top. I have not got it layered yet or quilted. I have some ideas for quilting it. I think I'm going to do a lot of straight line quilting with my walking foot on this one. There's a lot of negative space, and I know for those of you that are competent in doing free motion quilting, you'd say, ooh, look at the playground here. But I'm not that competent yet. But what I think I'm going to do is do sort of a straight line echo quilting inside the large maple leaf, so that I'll just follow the outline of the maple leaf itself and then do echo lines so right to the edge. And then I think on the part outside, the big negative space, I might do some serpentine lines that radiate out from the maple leaf. And I'm not sure if I'm going to do those right to the very edge, so go right across the side panels, and there's a bottom panel here as well, or how that will work. I mean, there's potential here to do some quilting inside each of the little maple leaves as well. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that yet. But, you know, I'm never sure what I'm going to do when it comes to quilting, and I just kind of make it up as I go. But anyways, I'm very pleased with the way it's turned out now. Yes, now. You'll notice in the header for this week's video, I put, have I lost it? Well, I had some problems with this quilt, and I had some problems with another quilt that I'm going to talk about in a moment as well, the mystery quilt from my ex-guild. And well, the problem was this. Things did not come out in the size of the measurements that the pattern called for. All of these little blocks over here with the 4 maple leaves came out 1 inch smaller than what the pattern said they should be finished. I don't know why. I have no idea. I double checked everything. I think something went terribly wrong when I was making the half square triangles. Now I used triangulations for those, you know, the paper type of system that you can use for making them, which I've used many times before. I don't know if I somehow picked the wrong sheet size and that's what gave it to me. I don't know. I have to be honest, I did find a couple of confusing, I'm not going to call them mistakes, I don't think they were mistakes, but there was some confusion in the order of the instructions. Again, that might have just been me, not necessarily the pattern designer, but whatever it was, I had some moments where I went, oh God, this is not going to work. But it did. I made it work. I had to readjust the measurements slightly to do this, but it does work. I did add a border to this. You can see the background fabric that I used in the borders as well. The reason I did that was because, to me, without the border, well, I'm a border person. I love borders on things. I just think it finishes off quilts very nicely. I know in a very modern design, which I think this is probably a very modern design, could be classified as that, you know, putting borders around it kind of takes away from the modernness, if that's a word. of the quilt, but that's okay. I can live with that. I just like the borders that finish things up for me. Of course, I had to applique that huge red maple leaf that is not pieced, and I was a little worried about that because of the size, but no problem. I got it done, and my stitching on that is almost invisible. The thread matched pretty well with the red in the maple leaf, and I used a blanket stitch on my machine, and I think it turned out pretty good. Of course, as I always do because I'm an idiot, I did my applique, preparing it half-ass backwards. Instead of laying down my steam seam and putting my fabric on top of it and, tracing it out and then cutting it all out that way, I kind of cut out the maple leaf first out of the fabric, and then I laid it on the steam seam, and then I cut around the leaf again to cut out the steam seam, and it worked. It worked, but that's not the best method. And I knew that was not the best method, but I don't know what happened. I mean, every part of this quilt, which is not a difficult quilt really when you think about it, I had some problems. So that's why I say not necessarily the problem with the pattern, it's just me. I think I'm losing it. But anyways, I got it done. Now, I had great plans to start quilting this, layering it and quilting it. I finished it on Sunday at the top, and I was going to have it all layered and ready to go come Monday morning, and I was going to sit down and I was going to start the quilting of it. Then I discovered I did not have enough backing fabric. I wanted it in the same color as the maple leaves, and I had some of it, but it wasn't enough. So then I went through my stash. I found some other things, but I wasn't really happy with the shades of red that those were in. I didn't want to do a white on as backing fabric. I stay away from doing white on backing fabric, mainly because, well, one, it'll show every one of my quilting little oopses if I'm doing anything but white as my quilting thread. And two, I just think it has more potential to get dirty looking if you do it all in white. Plus, depending on how dark your top fabric, the flimsy fabrics are, you could possibly see those through at the back. So yeah, I stay away from white. I tried taking pieces of fabric that I had, and I thought I could maybe piece a backing together. I just said, no, screw this. I'm not going to go and do this piecemeal. So I went online looking for this fabric. Well, of course, I went to Ultimate Sewing, and nope, they did not have this particular one. And what's very annoying, not with Ultimate Sewing, but with Northcott anyways, and probably other designers, their numbering system for their fabric when you want to reorder a fabric sucks, at least online. Some quilt stores online don't even give you the numbers. Other ones have a different set of numbers. I don't know. I looked on the selvage for this and tried to find a specific number. I found a number, but it brought up all kinds of different things in a line. I don't understand. I should do some research as to how fabric manufacturers actually number their fabrics. But anyways, I found something on Ultimate Sewing. I want it 4 meters. Yeah, that's more than enough for this quilt. Although this is a fairly large quilt. I think right now it's working out to roughly about 90 by 80. So that's not bad size. So I looked on Ultimate Sewing. I found one that was sort of close, but not. So I called up the store to see if they had this particular one. I collected all the numbers and everything for it. And yep, would you know, they didn't have it. And this is a very popular one because this comes from the O Canada line from Northcott, which has been a very, very popular line of fabric for them for a while. Yeah, none of that. They had something else there in a wide back, but they sent me a picture of it. Didn't think it was going to work as well. So I did find something that was closer on Ultimate Sewing site. So I ordered it through the website, kind of sight unseen. Well, no, there was a picture of it. But you know, when you look at things on a computer screen in real life, there can be a color shift. But I ordered 4 meters of it anyways. Got an email yesterday morning from one of the employees telling me they only had 2 meters left. But, and this is why I love Ultimate Sewing, because the service is so good. Lynn, one of the staff there, and she's excellent to deal with, she sent me a picture of something she thought might work. And yeah, I think it will. So I ordered 4 meters of that instead, and I'm picking it up later today from curbside pickup, and I'm hoping it's going to work out okay. It doesn't have to be exactly that red, because this is going to be on the back anyways. Nobody really looks at the back. But anyways, so once I get that, then I think probably tomorrow, because it won't be until this afternoon that I pick up the backing fabric, I'll get it all laid out, layered, and I'll start the quilting process towards the end of the week. And maybe, if all goes well, next week I will be able to show you this quilt completed. Okay, so that was one of the quilts I was losing it on. The other quilt is the mystery quilt from my ex-guild. Well, it's beginning to look more like a quilt now, and I'll show this to you. I warn you, the fabrics I picked are extremely busy when they all get together. They are from the Tim Holtz Eclectic line. And this is what we have so far. Now, at first glance on this, you're going to say, well, how did you lose it? What's going on? What's happening here? Why do I say that I'm losing it? Because my measurements did not work. I still don't know what this whole quilt is going to look like when I am done. But the little intersection parts on the corners of the big, more blank squares with the ones that have the star in the center did not match up well. And I screwed around with that. These blocks are not the size that they're supposed to be. I had to do some finagling to get it all to work. However, the saving grace of this so far is that this quilt the fabric is fairly busy, and so you really don't, unless you study it, notice that some of these little intersection parts, you probably can't see it on here, do not perfectly line up. I was almost ready to give this sucker up because, well, I was getting very frustrated with it. And in fact, I said to Walter, well, I'm going to carry on with this, and when the product is done, if I don't like it, I'm going to cut it up into strips, rearrange them, and make a scrappy quilt. It can be done. I have never done that with a quilt top before, but I have seen videos where people have, and yeah, I was willing to give that a go. But I think it is working out okay. So next month we get the next installment. I'm not sure how many installments there are for this quilt, but I think it's getting closer now to the end. This is a lap size, so it's not going to be a huge quilt. But anyways, yeah. So between those two quilts, I figured, what's going on here? Am I suffering from COVID fog? I mean, neither of those two quilts should have been a problem. They're pretty easy in the piecing. Yeah. Okay. So maybe I need a break from these kind of quilts and go on with something else. In fact, I have gone on with something else, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But meantime, I had a bobbin problem, bobbin case problem, storage problem. I get bobbins that have about 25% of their thread left when I'm embroidering. My embroidery machine is set up to detect when the bobbin thread will not be enough to carry on with whatever you're working on, and the machine just won't function until you put in a new bobbin. So that's great. That's a great feature because you aren't playing bobbin chicken. However, it leaves me with a bunch of bobbins that have, like, well, here's one for example, that have, you know, still a fair amount of thread left on them. Not a lot, but still a fair amount. And I don't really want to waste that. I mean, if it was only if it was half that amount that was there, you know, I would probably just pull it off, and I saved the old bobbins. I don't know why. I have hundreds of them. I would just pull it off and that would be it. But I don't want to do that with these. So what I've been doing is I've been pitching those bobbins when I take them out of the embroidery machine into a little box. And when I need bobbin thread as I'm sewing on my regular machine, I'll pull one of those out to use them up. Okay, that's fine and dandy, except in the box I have a whole bunch of these bobbins that have, you know, not that much thread left on them, and they're getting kind of tangled up and messed up in the box. So I thought I need a bobbin holder. So I went to my trusty 3D printer and I printed myself a little bobbin tray. Now I printed each one of these out. There's 4 of them, 2 reds, 2 blues. I printed those out separately, and then I glue gunned them to this platform. This is a tray that was a reject from another project I was doing with my 3D printer. And I never throw out my rejects. I throw them in a big box because I had this idea I might make a sculpture out of them. Okay, maybe I am losing it. But anyway, so that tray, just these fit perfectly in there. And a little spot for me to put my finger and hold it up. And yeah, so that's what I'm using. And it just sits off to the side and it keeps everything nice and neat. Yes, I know you can buy bobbin holders. I own some. But I didn't go out to buy one. And when I can make it, why buy it? So that was a bit of a diversion from my quilting. And so some other diversions. So what I'm working on now, off and on, is I got this pattern. Take it out of the plastic bag because it'll be a glare. It's called Across Canada. This is Nova Scotia. It's just a small little piece. I think it measures 10.5 by 8.5 inches when you get it done. It is a fusible applique, and they're just really nice. Now I saw this at a store north of me called Thimbles and Things back, back when we could go into the store, so it's been a while. And I had kind of forgotten about it. I have a drawer behind me that's marked projects. And I just throw little kits that I see or whatever that I think are kind of cute as future projects into that drawer, shut the drawer, and then promptly forget about them. So I was looking for something else and I came across this yesterday, and I thought, you know, I don't feel like starting another quilt before this one is done. But I'm antsy here. I want some little thing to work on. So I got this out and decided to do it. And actually, it was kind of fun. Here it is, the finished piece. Well, it's not actually finished because the idea now is that you'll do a little thread painting on it for the quilting and that. But I like this so much that I thought, instead of doing this as a one-off piece, I know that they have a series of these because it's Across Canada, it's called, and I think there's one of these for each province and each territory. So I went back online to Thimbles and Things, and sure enough, they had all of the series, every province and territory, as a kit. Now you could just buy the pattern itself, and I think that was $7.95, or you could buy it as a kit, which I did with this one, and it comes with the fabrics that you need to make it. Well, I'm a little lazy. It would have been a lot cheaper if I had just bought the patterns because, well, there's 10 provinces and 3 territories in our country, so I need 13 kits, but I had one, so I need 12. That gets a little pricey. The kits separately were $21.95 a piece. I bought them all. I've got them all on order. Cost me $300. But I got free shipping. Yay! Because it was over $150. But my plan now is to do all of those and make them into a quilt. One big quilt. And I think it'll be a really nice looking wall hanging quilt, you know, for Canada. So that's what I'm going to do, and that's why I have not done the thread painting or the quilting on this piece yet, because I think I'll need to get them all into a quilt and layered and then do that after they're all put together. At least that's what I'm thinking right now, but you know me, my plans can always change. So I'm looking forward to getting the rest of those. This might be one of those projects that's going to take a long time to do because I have a feeling I'm not going to do them all at once. So it'll be an ongoing project. So anyways, that's kind of keeping me out of mischief. I also had another kit in my drawer that I bought, I don't know when, some time ago, and it's called Risky Business. And of course the reason I liked it is because it's got pussycats on it. But I did buy the kit at the time, and it comes with all the fabrics that are needed to make this. And like I said, I have had this for quite some time. I have no idea where I bought it. It's called Among Brenda's Quilts and Bags is the name of the designer's website, I think. And yeah, amongbrendaquilts.com. And it's designed by Brenda Miller. So I think what you get out of it is this little wall hanging. You can also do little individual squares, but I'm going to do the wall hanging. And I think it's kind of cute. So I think I'm going to get started on that maybe today, maybe not. We'll see. So yeah, what did I say at the first of the year? I was not going to get involved starting a whole lot of projects at once, that I was going to do one thing at a time, get it done, move on to the next thing. Yeah, that's gone out the window, hasn't it? Okay, so what else has been happening? Well, Walter and I are both watching The Great British Sewing Bee. This is not available on any channels that we get through our cable subscription, but someone sent Walter a link to a site that has all the shows on it that you can download. And so that's what we've done. There's 7 seasons of it. Have them all downloaded. And the way that I do things is I have a dedicated hard drive. That's a terabyte drive, actually, that's hooked into our system. So anything we want to watch on any of our televisions in the house, we are equipped in such a way that we can go to that file on that external hard drive and put it up on our TV. So we have been watching the Great British Sewing Bee episodes. We've started right at the beginning and working our way through. We're into the 3rd season now, and we thoroughly enjoy it. It is garment making. They don't do quilts, and so maybe it has a little bit more appeal for Walter, but I find it really inspirational. Almost makes me want to try, almost I said, try making clothing, but I don't think so. I'm leaving that all to Walter. I'll stick with quilting. But it's very, very good. I really like it. And I've had several people recommend it to us. It was just a case of us being able to access it. So now we can, and so very happy about that. Okay, what's that taking me now? Oh, demo of the week. Well, you've heard of these before. Some of you may own them, but if you don't own one of these and you've been putting it off because you don't think you'll really get a lot of use of it, stop that thought right now. And that's a revolving cutting mat. One of the best tools I have ever invested in. They're a little pricey. They come in different sizes. They actually come in different shapes as well. But I thought I'd show you why I love my revolving cutting mat so much. So I have a little video clip here to insert to show you. I want to show you a tool that I really can't live without. And although this can be a very pricey item at times, I think it is well worth the money. Now, I had held off on one of these for quite a while because I thought, well, really, do I need another cutting mat? You do. This is something that's going to make your life a lot easier for several reasons. And also, it's a good device to protect you from cutting yourself with your rotary cutter. And what I'm talking about is a rotary mat. Now, I have 2 rotary mats here, 2 different sizes, and I'm going to start with the big one. Now, this one is an Olfa, and it's just simply a cutting mat. It's 17 by 17 inches, so it's not a bad size, and it rotates. Now, why do we care if it rotates? Well, I'm going to show you. Oftentimes when we're cutting things, especially if we're using a template or something like that, we usually, if we're right-handed, we favor that side to use our rotary cutter with. And if you're left-handed, of course, it would be the other side. 2 out of the 4 sides we might want to cut on a template are very easy to get to. For example, I want to cut this piece of fabric, and this is I'm just using a 4.5 inch square. So I'm placing it on my fabric, and it is not a problem to cut the right side because I'm right-handed and the top. But if I want to cut these sides over here, let's move these out of the way. I could go this way. I could kind of bend my body over this way. I could go down here, but none of those are comfortable for cutting. And if it's not comfortable for cutting, especially with a rotary blade, you could slip, you could cut yourself, you could nick your ruler, which once you've nicked the ruler, you might as well throw it away. So, you know, you've got to take your fabric and you've got to reposition it. However, on a rotary mat, all I need to do is I can leave my template exactly where it is, rotate my mat, and now I can safely cut my fabric. Now, this is really handy when you have to do a lot of multiple cuttings of things where you have to reposition your fabric 90 degrees or more. It just makes your life so much easier. It's more efficient. It's safer. Now, you can get these in different sizes, as I've said, and you can get them in different shapes. You can get them round ones. Martelli, I believe, sells one that is round, and it also has an accessory where you can have a pressing mat on top. I don't know about those. I would be a little leery about the pressing mat part, that it might go right through and warp your cutting mat part. I'm not sure. They might come apart. You may be able to take the cutting mat part off the base and then put the pressing part on top of it. I'm not going to run out and buy one of those because I don't really see the need for it, since I have these 2 rotary mats, or revolving mats, whatever you want to call them. So I did buy a Fiskars one, which is a little smaller. This one is 7 by 7 inches, and it does the same thing. It serves the same purpose, but for those little pieces when you may not want to get out the whole big mat, you have this. Now, what else are these good for? Well, if you're going to a class, when we can get back to going to classes or to retreats, if you don't want to take a full-size cutting mat with you, especially if you're taking a class, and oftentimes, at least the classes I've taken, there's not a lot of room in the classroom part. So I usually pack this one. Actually, I pack both of them in my bag, my sewing bag, and I can get this out, and I've got a cutting mat right beside me. So it doesn't have to rotate to use it. It works just like any other cutting mat. And this little one, you can see, just goes around like this. So these are 2 items that I can't live without. I use them a lot, and I really, really like them. So you might want to add, if you don't have one already, you might want to invest in a rotating mat in your supplies. I don't think you can go wrong. So as I said, I highly recommend that you invest in one of those because it is well worth the money. Okay, so that takes us to Subscribers Quilt of the Week, and this is by Wendy Kingen, and we have seen some of her quilts before, but this time she's got a little video of one of the quilts that she'd already done, and yeah, check this out. I think the video speaks for itself. Subscriber's quilt is by Wendy Kingen, and she has sent us some quilts before, which are all very lovely, and this is another one that is also equally as lovely, and she says the name of the quilt is called Confetti. There is 200 different pieces of 2.5 squares in this quilt. The size is 83 by 92 inches. It was quilted on a long arm machine with variegated yellow thread in a daisy pattern. It is very colorful, and yes, I think doing 200 pieces, little squares, would drive me nuts. So you have the patience of a saint, Wendy. So thank you so much for sharing this quilt with us. So in the show notes, you're going to find some shout outs. There you will find my email address if you care to send me some pictures of your projects so I can feature them here on future episodes of the Idiot Quilter. Just again, I said this last week, but I'm going to say it again. Just please, 1 or 2 pictures and a short blurb about it, because it's my show, not your show. So, no, what I mean is it does take me a little bit of time to make those little video clips. And also, the more you send me, the more chance I have of screwing up. Because I can screw up, as you well know. Why do you think this channel is called the Idiot Quilter? So, I don't want to screw up anybody's pictures. I don't want to get somebody else's quilts in with a different description from somebody else, that kind of thing. So, you know, you can send me stuff as often as you like. I don't mind repeat performances, but just, you know, break it up into small parts, please. There is a link to last week's So Chatty, episode 8, and that's where we talked about thread. We call it thread confusion, and the whole point of that was to try and demystify threads. And guess what we did? We didn't demystify it. We probably confused people even more. After we were finished doing that, we both had headaches. Thread is a lot more complicated than one would think, but maybe there'll be some enlightenment from that episode. That's what we're hoping for. Next week, we'll be doing, well, later this week, we're going to be looking at irons, all about irons, or at least all about the irons that we have used, and what we like and what we don't like. There's a link to Ultimate Sewing. There's a link to the pattern that I'm going to talk about, this week's pattern. And there's a link to this week's YouTube personality and the store of the week as well. So lots there for you. All the links are there. So let's move right into YouTube of the week. This is by a gentleman called Timothy Tutten. It's an interesting kind of YouTube channel because it is not refined. It's not like, oh, let's say Laura, who does, you know, So Very Easy, or the Fat Quarter Shop, or any of the other ones, the Missouri Star Quilt. It's a little rough around the edges, and that's okay. Because what Timothy shows is how to sew not so much quilts as other things. So it's more of a general sewing kind of YouTube channel. I think, I could be wrong about this, but I think his background is in sewing linings for caskets. Yeah, I think. But he shows how to make masks. He's been experimenting with different mask styles. He shows you how he makes things with dollar store type products that can be made into useful sewing room products as well. He talks about sewing machines, his sewing machines. I find him very entertaining. And also, he's not afraid to show you when he screws up a little bit. And I admire that. I really do. Because that's real. I think that's very real. So, his link to his YouTube channel is in the show notes. Check him out. Okay, and what's that take us to? Turn the page over. Ah, yes. The Mix and Match by Jordan Fabrics. This is one that sits on my vision board. What I do is when I watch Jordan Fabrics or any other YouTube things or go to certain websites and I see a freebie pattern, these are freebie patterns, a lot of them, that catches my eye, I will download them, save them, print them out, put them in a nice little plastic bag and hang them on my vision board, and that's where they'll sit forever. Now, they're kind of inspiration for one thing. I may never get to making them all that are there because the vision board's getting kind of full. But they're sort of a reference point for me as well, and inspiration looking at them. If they just sit in a box somewhere, I'll forget all about them. So this is something that's there as a reminder. This one's called Mix and Match, and I'm not fond of the color scheme that she has on this cover, but the one that she did on her YouTube channel was a little different color scheme, and I really liked it. That's what caught my eye. It doesn't look like it's too difficult. You do have inset triangles, but no big deal. Yeah, this is one that I think I'm going to eventually make. I think this would make a great scrappy quilt as well. So, and who doesn't have scraps? So somewhere down the road I will make this, but it is a free pattern. You just need to go to Jordan Fabrics. In fact, for this particular pattern, I put the link in the show notes, so you can just click on that and you can get your own copy of the pattern. Okay, so that takes me now to one of my quilts for critiquing, and this was one, I'm very fond of this one. This one hangs over top of our bed, you know, over top of the headboard, because this one is my one and only quilt that I ever made for a competition and entered it in a quilt show. And it was a quilt show for my ex-guild a few years ago. It was a challenge quilt, and I do explain that in a little video clip, and it's called A Flutter of Friends. And although I did not win, I didn't expect to win. You know, you never expect to win. You always set yourself up for loss, but you know, there's a little part inside of you that goes, but what if? Well, I was a little tiny disappointed because I put my heart and soul into this. But you know, such is life. The one that did win in that category, yeah, deserved to win. It was gorgeous. But here it is. This quilt of mine this week is one I'm very, very proud of, and I actually entered it into a quilt show. And it's my first and only quilt that I have ever entered into a quilt show. This was a quilt show put on by the guild I used to belong to, and the assignment for this was, it was a bit of a challenge. They gave you, well, you purchased a meter, I think it was a half meter, of what they called the focal fabric. And the focal fabric in this particular quilt that I had to use is the brightly colored butterflies in one of the blocks that make up the stylized leaf, if you will, or flower. It's very difficult, I know, to see in this particular video, but it's the second block at the top from the left, the lighter colored one. Well, I went out and I purchased some coordinating fabric for that, the darker fabric, and I had yellow and a blue shade as well, which I picked up from the border material that I used and from the focus material as well. I designed this myself. I designed it on EQ8. First time that I'd really ever designed a quilt as well. So there was a lot of firsts going on in this. I think I'm very proud, I know, I'm very proud of this quilt, and it hangs prominently over top of the headboard to our master bedroom bed. And yeah, I was a little disappointed that I didn't win anything, but the one that I was up against was a quilt that was completely appliqued by a lady who'd been quilting for many, many years and was actually a stunning quilt. However, it broke the ice for me, first time putting one of my quilts really on public display, and although I didn't win anything for it, I'm very proud of it. Now the quilting in this, I did add a long arm rental place, and so it was a pentagram, because at that point in time I was not taking any chances by trying to do my own free motion quilting. And I did swirls on this to sort of imitate the idea of the butterflies, you know, flying around. I'm not sure if the judges, when they looked at that, got that point or not, but that's what I did. My corners are all well mitered. I was very careful with my binding. I was very careful with a lot of steps of this. I want to make sure that my points were all revealed, and there was a lot of ripping out and redoing as I worked on this quilt. But as I said, I'm very proud of this one, and it hangs prominently in our master bedroom. And yeah, my first challenge quilt entered in a quilt show, so I'm proud of the fact that I did that. So that takes us to my review of an online fabric store. This one is called the Heart Quilt Shop, and it's in a place called Bethany, Ontario. Bethany, Ontario is only about, maybe 40 minutes north of me, northeast east of me. So I have been actually to their physical store when you could go to physical stores. It is a cute little physical store. It has a fairly good selection of fabrics, but they do tend to move their way into more of the wool fabrics and into wool that you use for embroidering and things like that. But their fabric, there's, as I said, a fair selection of fabric online, and they have a lot of wool fabrics and related wool products. And I know there are a lot of people that are into that. I have never really dabbled in it at all, because I'm really not sure what to do with it. But they have a good selection online. They are a little more expensive, however, than many online stores. But they do have some good sales. Prices range from about $20 a meter and up. So that's why I say they're a little bit on the pricey side. And they only do 1 meter cuts. So if you want half a meter or quarter meter, they won't do it. They will only do 1 meter cuts. They don't seem to sell batting online either. So I do find them a little bit on the pricey side, and I have to be honest, I've never ordered anything online from them, so I'm not sure how quick you will get what they're selling. They don't sell sewing machines. They do have a fairly good selection of notions, and the prices on their notions are about average for what you would expect to pay for those notions. They have patterns and they have kits. They have a few kits, but it's not really an extensive selection. Patterns are somewhat limited as well, I find, online. As far as thread is concerned, if you're a hand embroiderer, you will find a great selection of embroidery threads, and they carry Wonderfill, Valdani, and DMC, as well as Sue Spargo. So really, this store's overall appeal is, I think, more to people who are into wool products and into hand embroidery as well. They don't seem to have any classes listed. And overall, it's a nice physical store if you were ever to be in the area and visit it when we can. But I find them very heavy on the wool products, as I've already said, and the prices are a little on the high side. Atmosphere in the store, it's a very cute store, but I found it a little cold. I don't know why. Maybe it was just me that particular day that I was in there. Maybe because I'm a man. Yeah, there is. Sorry, I was interrupted there for just a minute because my camera said it was full. I had to remove some videos so I could finish off with this. So as I was saying, I find the atmosphere was not overly friendly. But, you know, that may have just been the particular day. I don't know if the person working there was not having a great day or whatever. So I'm not going to judge it on that alone. I will judge it on their prices, though. I find them very, very pricey. And I don't know if they're surviving COVID or not, because I haven't ordered anything from them online. But shipping, let's just talk about shipping. I couldn't find any information about shipping online. There is an email address listed, so I guess maybe if you're interested in something they have and you want it, I guess you'd send them an email and find out how much it's going to cost you. I don't like that I couldn't find shipping information on their website. That leaves a bad taste in my mouth as well. In fact, if I can't find anything about shipping for online stores, and this is just me, I won't bother. Unless it was something I really, really, really wanted and that was the only place I could get it from, then I might inquire about how I would get it. But if it's not readily available for you on there, then no. That to me suggests an attitude, and not an attitude I like. So anyways, you might want to check it out. If you're into wool, it's a place you could check out as well. But just beware, prices are fairly high, and I don't know anything about shipping. Okay, so there's a link, of course, in the show notes for that. So what's coming up? No idea. So Chatty, all about irons, this week later on, and yeah, that's about it. But I am sure something will happen during the week that I will be talking to you about next week. So until then, I hope you stay happy and healthy, and get your shot if you haven't got your shot already, and quilt something, sew something, do something creative just to make yourself happy. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye for now.